3 Points of Articulation podcast. Break it down time now. We're looking at WrestleMania 27, the showcase of the mortals. Looking at the card for this one. For me, this was when I first got back into wrestling. This is when this sort of sparks the nostalgic feels you get from it. Because I think when The Rock came back, that's when I saw the clip on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh, The Rock's back." What's your guys' views? Do you remember this event much? Was you watching it back in 2011?
I watched this one live with a group of friends on this one, so it was kind of like going out, having a few beers before it, and then getting back and watching it to massive disappointment. So we'll go into that in a bit.
I was into it since I got back into it in 2010, so I'd been watching the whole year build up towards this WrestleMania. So it's one of the first ones in a long time I was really clued up to what was going on. At the time, I was working in a call center, so I imagine I was at work on the Monday and watched it later on. But at the time, I didn't even have a smartphone, so there was no sort of going on Facebook or anything. So I didn't see any spoilers or that sort of thing. So I watched it on the night and it was pretty decent.
I fell asleep during the Randy Orton CM Punk match during this one, and then all the way through. If you know anything about me, you know full well that my favourite things to do are falling asleep during a wrestling pay-per-view. It's my favourite thing in the world to do. Lovely, so let's get started then. For dark match-wise, we had Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus, and ended in no contest, and a Battle Royal. So they're the two dark matches. We won't cover those because they're not on the network.
Yes, we will.
Adam.
Yes, we will. How on earth, how does a lumberjack match finish with a no contest? How?
Fast.
Booking.
And then a very C-card battle royal it was next, with Carly winning. Was a couple of faces in there. Drew McIntyre was in that one. But it was mainly filled up with your kind of Yoshi Tatsus, Kurt Hawkins type of C-graders at the time.
And obviously the bump one of the best matches of the card on the pre-show and didn't even have a decent match with a finish. So
yeah, the story behind that one, I feel a bit sorry for Sheamus on that one, because he was given two choices of who he could face. He was given Daniel Bryan or Rey Mysterio, and he chose the wrong option because Rey Mysterio had a lot more at that point that would have got them on the main card. Even Daniel Bryan afterwards came out and said Sheamus made the wrong choice on that weeks leading up to it. He should have chose Rey Mysterio to get himself on the card. But fair play to Sheamus. He wanted to face Bryan.
Yeah, definitely. Right, before we go into the on this event,
you got to repeat that. You went quiet, Jamie. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So, any bits on this event before we start going on to the main card?
Are you going to start on the main card, or are you going to start on the announce team?
We'll start on the main card. Only because announced team wise, it's very much what you expect from 2011. It was in that era that I really disliked Michael Cole, not to the point of Michael Cole as a heel, just in general. I didn't want to see him on my TV. He was in the little pathetic box. It was just, not a good time for me.
So we are starting on the announce team then, Jamie. Right then. This, I will be completely honest, I agree with you, but with much more disdain than you just gave. This almost made me stop watching wrestling in this era. Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler in this era, more to the extent of Michael Cole, was unbearable. And it was not heel heat unbearable. It was, I don't actually care about you, want to see you, and you're ruining the product for me. Ignoring the match, which we'll get to, honestly, the months, the year, whatever leading up to this was one of the worst times in professional wrestling.
Yeah, I completely agree about what you said about Michael Cole. It was just go away heat. I disagree about with Jerry Lawler. He was massively over as a babyface, and coming into this event, he'd had a great feud with The Miz, which I thought he could even win the WWE title. So yeah, I quite like Lawler at this time, but not Cole. And I was very surprised to hear Josh Matthews on the call. I thought he was in TNA at this time or something.
No, that was much later, I think, for Josh Matthews. Yeah, fair play. I'm probably being a bit harsh on Lawler there. You're right about the Miz thing. I really enjoyed that little patch. So yeah, Michael Cole. Let's go with that.
I think Lawler was probably guilty by association, I'd say, on this occasion. Right, so yeah, start off Edge and Alberto Del Rio. Oh, no, Jono?
We can't miss the 20 minutes of The Rock walking around the ring.
Oh, of course. How dare I? How dare I? It's almost like at the start of it, Vince has gone, the crowd's quite dead out there, Dwayne. Go out there and say some catchphrases and then come back. That's what it seemed like to me. He just, it was a sort of a long and drawn out affair for me.
Yeah, if I was Daniel Bryan or Sheamus, this whole event was over the top as far as just longevity of nothingness. So I would have been very annoyed if I was them.
I remember listening to a podcast about this event last summer, and they just went on and on about how bad and boring and long the segment was, so I skipped it completely. I just started with the Edge match.
Well, thanks for stopping me talking about the Edge match to then discuss the Rock match.
That be said. It wasn't a match.
We're about to move on to Edge?
Yes.
Yes, right. So Edge's last match for 9 years on here. Face Alberto Del Rio, which, I mean, I was surprised at the time that Alberto Del Rio didn't win, only because he was a new toy, essentially. Come out of a very nice car. Edge come out with Christian. Brodus Clay was at ringside. Guys, what's your thoughts on this standard match? John,
I would have bet the house on Del Rio winning at this WrestleMania, especially when he just went through that 40-man Royal Rumble win and things like that. He was pushed to the top straight away. The big plans for him. I know a lot of people really dislike Del Rio, whether that's personal or even in ring, but I do actually really like him, and seeing this event again, seeing him work, brings all that back, and I was quite enjoyed the match too.
Yeah, I was really shocked at the time. I loved that Royal Rumble. I thought it was a really well put together Royal Rumble for 40 people, particularly the ending of it. And Del Rio was brilliant throughout that Rumble. He's a great wrestler, is Del Rio, ignoring all the personal side of things. He's absolutely fantastic and amazing in his character. I'm not sure I 100% believe WWE that Edge went for his MRI the day after. I've got to be honest there. The match was all arm bars. It was all, there was a couple of spots in it, but it was generally all stuff which was just meant to rest and just rest moves, basically. So whether Edge knew more than he says he did about his injury beforehand, I don't know. The match was okay in itself, but it was very rest holding.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
He knew something, but I don't think he told WWE this or anything like that. So maybe he knew that his limitations in the match and didn't take too many ridiculous bumps. But I think the match worked really well. It's a good story during the whole match, and I really enjoyed it. It was a good start of the show.
And after the match, they destroyed Alberto Del Rio's car for some reason.
Yeah, that was rubbish.
Yeah.
Again, it was long and drawn out for no reason.
Yeah, it was just very. I think I even fast forwarded past that bit. So next up, we got Cody Rhodes and Rey Mysterio. A bit of backstory to this. Obviously, Rey Mysterio did the 619. Made Cody Rhodes wear the sort of face. He had the grotesque gimmick that happened, which I didn't hate. I thought it was actually quite good for the character at the time. You guys, Adam, let's go to you first on this one.
First of all, I loved the storyline. It was one of my favourite storylines of probably 3 or 4 years around that. I thought Cody Rhodes played it really, really well. It was the perfect combination of people, I think. I actually really enjoyed the match. And Cody, victorious, brilliant.
I can't really remember the storyline too much. I think I might have even skipped SmackDown at this point because I might have been busy on a Saturday or something like that. So I didn't see SmackDown or whenever it aired. I can't remember. So the match didn't mean too much to me. Rewatching it, I kind of zoned out a bit. So I think the finish was pretty good though.
Yeah. I think both of them are talented people, especially back there. I like Cody's gimmick. I think he was generally quite a good worker back then as well. So I was quite happy to see that match on the card. And this is one I stayed awake for, which is good. Next, it was hard to not stay awake for this match because it was so short. Big Show Kane, Kofi Kingston, and Santino Marella defeat the Core. Why? Just why in general did this match? Well, I get why it happened. There's a bit of backstory to it, but a minute and a half for the Core, it just finished them off, didn't it? For me,
I like this one because I know he's a fan of the Core. So go on.
Yeah, this match was everything that was wrong with booking at the time in WWE. The fact that you had the Intercontinental Champion and the Tag Team Champions in there, not defending their belts, first and foremost, getting absolutely crushed, secondly. It was to give Kane another WrestleMania victory. It was to give Big Show another WrestleMania victory. And it was to reward Santino for how well he did in the Rumble spot at the end. And it was to bury the Core, which was a shame.
The only lasting effects of watching this match is hearing Kofi Kingston's old song, and it's stuck in my head ever since.
I hear I'm crying. That one. SOS. I think we've discussed it for longer than the actual match lasted. A minute and a half it was. Randy Orton, CM Punk next. All in all, I've watched it back recently since I fell asleep during it, and it's not a bad match. It's a typical Randy Orton match where it's quite slow and methodical, but it's also a typical CM Punk match where it's a lot top heavy. Johnny, let's go to you first on this one.
Yep, slow, methodical, psychological, brilliant. I love this match completely. The story with working on Randy's legs, and to compliment Michael Cole, he was actually fairly decent in this call in the action. He kind of explained why Randy Orton couldn't kick out of the the CM Punk's submission move.
Ironically, I think it's called the go to sleep.
No, it's not. The clutch thing, I can't remember.
Oh, the Anaconda Vice.
Yeah, he explained that Randy Orton's leg was weak, so he couldn't push off to break the hold, which, a little bit of praise for Michael Cole. It's not going to say much for me going forward. And I love the fact that they put the Indian Deathlock into the match. That is one of my favourite moves and something I'm going to try and get into my matches when I start.
Yeah, this card had no 10 out of 10 matches. It had no 9 out of 10 matches. It had no 8 out of 10 matches. This was the best match of the night with a 7.5. Nice storytelling, just a good match.
This isn't retro review, Adam. I'm giving it 7.5s. The end of the match was really good. I think the RKO. This is when the sort of the stage where he was catching people left, right, and centre in them. So I quite liked the jump off the ropes into an RKO, which is sort of, I think for a few years it was captured in a few images and it's quite like a big moment.
I don't know whether it's because I've seen it so many times since, but I just seen that coming a mile away. I'm not sure if I felt the same way at the time, but yeah, I didn't like the finish too much, but I really enjoyed the match. Certainly above an 8 out of 10, I reckon.
Lovely. Right, so next up, we mentioned how well he did in his commentary in the last match. Michael Cole with Jack Swagger versus Jerry Lawler with Stone Cold Steve Austin as the special guest referee. Every kid's fantasy match, this, isn't it? Adam, let's cut across to you on this absolute showcase of the Immortals.
14 minutes of pure disgust on my face at the time, on my face on the rewatch. It was awful. It had everything that you wouldn't want from a wrestling match, including the stupid mystery manager, whatever it was called, general manager involvement, and it being ignored, reverse decision, weird stuff. Dean Malenko booked this match. I think he got in trouble for it.
He should have got in trouble because there's no way that Michael Cole should have had that much offense. I know he did get, Swagger beat down Lawler to put him in advantage, but he seemed to be in control for a good 5 minutes working on the leg, and it was just daft. You just couldn't believe it. It was really bad. The only thing there was a really, really good thing that came from it was that put out Michael Cole for the rest of the night. Wow.
Yeah, the anonymous Raw GM was a very, very dark period in wrestling. I've gone back since and watched after this event, sort of around the sort of 2012 side of things, when John Laurinaitis was in charge, and I think Raw was just a general better place then. If you go back and watch it then, it was really, really good shows, and I think it was after this, I think they realised the error of their ways and sort of fixed it a bit. So if anything, hopefully they watched this match and realised that it was just an absolute trash storyline and it fixed it. So
yeah, a trash storyline never even had a payoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so Undertaker versus Triple H in another streak match. We discussed it last time, WrestleMania 17, Undertaker versus Triple H. This one is sort of the second of the trilogy. It wasn't a bad match. I like the storytelling in it was really, really good. For me, it was just Triple H just wanting to pin him. That's the storyline for this, and ended up being his demise at the end of it, just using every sort of last breath he had. John, let's go to you first on this one. What was your view on Triple H versus Taker?
I think at the time when I watched it in 2011, I disliked it. I wasn't too much of a fan, but I guess my tastes have grown since, and I appreciated the psychology in the match for the most part. It did go longer than it should have, and I really hated the finish in 2011, where now I can really quite appreciate. I think it was a good finish, and it kind of really did set up for the next year as well.
This is my least favorite match in the history of wrestling. I absolutely hated it. I'm not saying it was the worst match, because it wasn't. It's my least favorite match based on a number of reasons. At the time, obviously, I said we'd been for a night out, we'd come back, we were enjoying the wrestling, and this killed everything that was about the night. It was pretty much a spot, a 3-minute sit down, a spot, a 3-minute sit down. And yeah, I get the psychology side of things, but I disliked it on the rewatch, so it wasn't just the night that I had. The thing that made it even worse was that for the next 2 months after this, they had at least 10 minutes of praise for this match on every single Raw and SmackDown afterwards. It was cringeworthy. This was a very, very bland, average match.
Yeah, it wasn't that good where you need the show replays over and over, but 7 out of 10.
Just to give you guys some clarity on this, so this match went on for 29 minutes and 23 seconds. The nearest match, time-wise, was the main event at 15 minutes 21 seconds.
Whoa.
So, you can sort of see where they're which basket their eggs were in for this event.
It could have been so different as well, because it was supposed to be Sting against The Undertaker, this match. Sting turned down the match and the Hall of Fame in this year. So that's what it was supposed to be.
I'm not sure it was supposed to be. I just think it was teased.
He actually physically turned down that match with The Undertaker. So
I wasn't to be then. So after that we've got the co-main event, Johnny. John Morrison, Snooki and Trish Stratus taking on the dynamic trio of Dolph Ziggler and Lay Cool. Celebrity involvement, if you class Snooki as a celebrity. Adam, let's go to you.
I mean, it was what it was. I do remember at the time her doing a few things which I was like, oh, she's actually done something. So at least there was a little bit of effort in there. For me, it was all about how miserable John Morrison was, and you could actually tell during the match, because he refused afterwards to even speak to Trish and Snooki, because obviously his girlfriend at the time, Melina, and a lot of the other divas or whatever didn't get a match because of this, and he was outwardly showing his emotion on this one. It was what it was. It was a celebrity match.
That sounds awkward for Morrison, doesn't it? But yeah, the only good thing that come out of it is that Trish Stratus and Lawler are looking pretty nice in this attires. Well, I suppose the other two scrubbed up all right as well. The other two have been Ziggler and Morrison.
I knew you were going there.
3 minutes and 16 seconds this got. Stone Cold would have been proud. Next we've got main event time. At the time, my personal favourite, The Miz, who was actually getting actual heel heat. He was very, very good at what he was doing at the time, versus John Cena, with The Rock being all kinds of involved in this match. This is apart from WrestleMania 9's main event, I think this has got to be one of the worst I've seen. Mania 9 wasn't actually that bad. It's just the whole Hogan situation. This was not a good structured match, I don't think. John, let's go to you.
I don't think it was that bad. I remember in 2011 watching it and it passed my expectations, at least. Obviously, we're not going to say it was a good match. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I think there's some good spots, and I think they kind of worked quite hard, to be honest. So it was okay until the finish was a bit weird.
Yeah, I was a big Miz fan at this time, so I actually quite enjoyed it. You could tell, like looking back and having a bit more knowledge about wrestling now, you could tell that they did certain things to divert away because they didn't think it was big enough. They didn't think the Miz could really pull off the whole match because they had the Raw general manager again being involved and The Rock changing stipulations and things. So it wasn't about the Miz versus Cena. It was about the build-up for the year after. Cena's entrance was really poor. It just didn't match Cena's character or image or anything. I didn't get it. There was no togetherness with that one. And the Miz getting seriously concussed towards the end of that match wasn't good with the thing on the concrete floor. It was all right. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't a bad match, but it wasn't a good match.
Yeah, it was just the Raw GM. They shouldn't get involved. I don't think there should be any controversy like this at the end of a WrestleMania match. It's just a bit of a letdown. I think, especially if I'd paid, I think they paid like $50 for a pay-per-view in America. If I paid $50 for this, and at the end of it, it was just essentially a prelude for WrestleMania 28 and 29, I'd have been a bit miffed. But my mate paid for it at the time, so I wasn't that bothered, and I was asleep. So all in all, it wasn't that bad. But I don't like the whole overbooking of the Raw general manager, which got involved every single week. Just give us a week off. It's WrestleMania.
Go back to the finish. In watching the vacuum as I did this week, I couldn't remember what had exactly happened in the build-up. So The Rock just attacking Cena without being provoked was quite weird to me. I didn't really understand it. But if I think back a lot, I think there was a lot of promos between the two. Is that right? And I think Cena might have said something to tick off The Rock.
I think he cut a rap on him, didn't he? Rapped to him.
I wasn't sure if that was the build up to the next WrestleMania or whether it was on the build up to this one. But I do remember that rap, and I remember actually seeing it did out promo The Rock, to be fair.
Yeah, so that's what I was just about to say. It was just about the promos, and Cena kind of gave as much as he took. I think towards the next one, people said that The Rock's promos were much better towards the build up for the next one, but I can't remember that far back, to be honest, for promos.
I think it depends what you're looking for, doesn't it? If you're looking for catchphrases, then The Rock's always going to win. If you're looking for sort of hard-hitting, close to the edge stuff, Cena normally outperforms on that.
Now that we are debating this, I think those promos when they lead up to the WrestleMania, because I remember discussing who we want to win, and I said, Cena's really out promoted The Rock all the way through. So kind of, I was on TikTok at the time. This is next WrestleMania.
I think the Fruity Pebbles one, I think that was in the lead up to this, wasn't it? the Fruity Pebbles.
Both the feud lasted so long that it's blending into one. We can't really tell what was what.
Once again, a long and drawn out affair. So what do you guys think then? Do you think this event was written in the stars, or do you reckon it was a million miles away? What do you think?
This was a really poor event. It would have been poor if it was a B-grade pay-per-view, let alone a WrestleMania. The fact that there was no belts changed hands, no payoffs in that respect, it was just weak. It was just like you go in on a high and you broke down.
You took my only fun fact of the event in that it's the first time that there's ever been no belts changing hands.
I didn't specifically say that, so you can have it.
Now I'm debating with myself whether that's true. I think it is though.
Only thing this song got Tiny Temper's song. He put it. I think he put it into number 3 in the Billboard charts in America. I think it sold more than any other British artist in the last 10, 15 years because of that.
Success.
I can't say it because of WrestleMania though.
Well, it got it into the charts.
It wasn't as if it was unknown leading up to that.
In the US, I would have thought so. I think he was paired with someone called Eric Turner, who was quite a big deal over in America as well. But either way, it was a good song. I quite like the song. I had it on my my iPod Shuffle at the time.
Sure you did, young Jamie.
Well, I was 21 years old. That's what I was into at the time. Right, so that's everything for WrestleMania 27.